And welcome to this episode. With me again is Luke. And this time we have an extra special guest, my older brother, Travis.
Nice to be here.
Glad to be back, Don.
So let's go ahead and jump right into seeing our trailer for this movie. And then I got a couple questions for you. Now, I'm just curious, did anybody else catch the alternative scene being used there?
Was it where they're actually tying the guy up?
No, it was the courtroom scene.
Oh, I didn't notice it then.
The line's correct, but it's not the variation of the line that was used in the movie. If you notice, there was Go ahead, Travis.
One of those issues where it's kind of like Luke, I am your father, rather than the true line.
No, I am your father.
I am your father.
Yep. I've been hearing I am your father my whole life. I know exactly what you're talking about.
No, if you look closely again and rewatch the movie, that's not the version of I want the truth. There was a half a second pause in the way he said that in the trailer. Now, from digging into this movie, between Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, they did that scene over 50 times. So that's probably one of the ones they had on the cutting room floor and just used it as part of the trailer.
Well, and that's the industry there too as well, because remember, the director doesn't direct the trailers. I think, it's one of those things where these editors and other people who come in and they might use footage that might not be, it might play better, but ultimately, and I think that Nico did his lines in like only a few days or something like that,
Actually, he was there for officially 11 days, but he was paid for 10 days.
Yeah.
So
I think they called him back, I think, for some scenes, and from what I recall, and it was like he later on said it was actually the best reason to call him back. It was actually a good reason. A lot of times when they call him back, it's not worth it, but he said it was actually worth it. I don't think he got paid for it.
Yeah, he actually, from the notes I have here, he technically worked the extra morning for free when Reiner and the crew didn't get all the footage shot in time. So, but ironically, the amount he got paid for kind of falls kind of interestingly in the same amount that a previous movie Luke and I did. Do you remember the dollar amount?
$10 million?
No.
Oh, I can't remember. I'm just throwing a number out there.
It was $5 million.
No.
And who was the star that we were talking about with the $5 million?
Oh, it was Bruce Willis.
There we go.
Yeah, he was one of the highest paid at the time.
Yeah, it was the highest paid action or movie, if you want to call him a movie star, since he was really coming from TV. But
yeah.
If you haven't already seen it, you should go back and watch our December 15th episode of Die Hard and why it's a Christmas movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
So interestingly, you know who wrote this movie, right?
I don't.
I do.
Enlighten us. That is correct. And do you remember the first TV show that it kind of brought to the main networks?
Me?
Anybody? I'm just asking. I don't know. Do you guys remember?
I'd say Mork and Mindy.
He's not that old.
Happy Days?
Do you remember a show called Sports Night? It only lasted 2 seasons on ABC, early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, and he kind of does a lot of those TV shows that are similar like that.
Well, Sports Night was kind of a comedy-ish spin on ESPN. And like I said, it only lasted 2 seasons. And then he went on to a little show on NBC in 1998 called The West Wing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then the most recent television programming I can recall that he wrote and produced would be The Newsroom on HBO. But he's also had other movie credits like The American President, for example.
Seems like he's kind of sticking with that same theme of, government.
I always, one of the things I noticed when I was looking him up was that he actually does a lot of the people's stories. I'm looking at it right now, and we've got Moneyball, Steve Jobs, Molly's Game. That was an interesting story about her and gambling. A beauty queen gone to gambling. But I just thought it was kind of one of those things where he had his pulse on that, the humanity of the character. I guess he could draw that out.
Yeah, I loved Moneyball. That was excellent.
Yeah.
See a future episode.
Definitely, it has to be. Yeah, because they're great characters.
Oh yeah.
Well, I just kind of find this connection, if you will, between Aaron Sorkin and Luke and I's conversation back in December about Bruce Willis. Aaron Sorkin wrote this whole story out on bar napkins while he was bartending.
Really?
Yep.
Holy cow.
I think he's a rag to riches.
Sorkin's older sister, Deborah, had recently joined the Navy JAG Corps. And fresh from graduating from law school, she was called him one Sunday morning. And Deborah told Aaron about this case she was working on involving a hazing gone wrong in the U.S. military base in Guantanamo Bay, where the accused said they were ordered to do it by their supervisor, involving a code red. Sorkin then went on to work as a bartender at the Broadway Palace Theater, where patrons were taking in the first act of La Gage La Palouse. I don't even know if I got that right. Don't care. Where he started beginning to write A Few Good Men on cocktail napkins, and then he'd go home that night and type them up and make his roommate read them as he finished them.
That's really interesting that it was kind of loosely based on a true story in a way. I mean, or true events, I guess I would say that actually.
I actually was able to find the original story, book about it actually out. It's called Trading with the Enemy. Basically, Leathernecks in the barracks said they snitched about a Marine firing over the defense line into Cuba. They didn't want him around. And when they told the Marine commanding officer, Colonel Sam Adams, what a cool name, their feelings, he agreed that Willie should be moved to another platoon the following week. As for that weekend, Adams was quoted as saying, "Let him sweat." By the time his attitude about Willie was made into the barracks level, a lieutenant had told the squad meeting, "Don't take him up to the third deck and throw him off and kill him. But if he falls down the stairs in the middle of the night, oh well."
Oh well. Huh.
So
if it has a bad spill or trip, so be it.
Yeah. So I've actually found this whole article. The incident took place back in 1986, obviously in Gitmo.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do a search for A Few Good Men and Tom Miller, you can actually find this full article that I found about it. So, as always, I do kind of like finding alternative casting for us. Did you... Okay, think about it in the 80s. Well, think of actresses of the 80s. Who do you think comes to mind for the role of Lieutenant Commander Galloway?
Sigourney Weaver.
Okay, that's a good one. Travis, any guesses?
I don't have any guesses about who it would be. I know that she was in competition with 2 other actresses, it said, or something. And I think she did something to make herself more eligible for the part. But I think, really, to be honest with you, I think she was just the last chicken in the bat, so she got picked.
Well, that falls along with our Die Hard background pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this case, there's only 2 other actresses that were kind of named as auditioning for the role. Jodie Foster.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. She would be good, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. That I could see that. I'm looking at her.
But I think at the same time, wasn't this about the same time Accused came out?
Oh, I don't remember.
Well, she had won an Oscar by then, so
Yeah.
I mean, she was good.
And the other one, I can see why she didn't actually do it, since she was also starring in a sci-fi thriller that same year. And that would be Linda Hamilton.
Oh, shoot. I mean, sorry. that surprised the heck out of Linda Hamilton of all people. I just couldn't see her playing.
I know. I thought that was kind of a interesting choice.
Yeah.
But in the end, could you tell that Demi Moore was 8 months pregnant in this movie?
Really? I mean, there is times when she's wearing giant sweaters and stuff, but they always make it like she's cold. So good job with them for hiding it, because I never noticed.
So yeah.
Yeah, me either.
The only other real surprising alternative is, can you think of anybody else other than Kevin Pollak as Sam Weinberg?
Besides Kevin.
Don't be Googling this over there, Travis.
I'm just trying
I was thinking that guy, the ER Dr. Green guy from Top Gun.
Oh my
Oh,
Anthony Edwards?
Anthony Edwards, yeah.
Yeah. I think he would have been perfect.
Mother Goose.
Oh my God. Mother Goose. Okay.
Yep.
Dude, I was going to say someone like Frasier.
Kelsey Grammer would have been interesting.
Yeah, Kelsey Grammer. I was thinking Kelsey Grammer for some reason. But
this might blow your mind. Jason Alexander.
Okay.
Well, what did
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld's going right then at this time.
Exactly.
That's probably why you couldn't pull, because he's so
Seinfeld was renewed for its second season, so this is just blowing my mind.
Oh, it's still early. Then he could have done it.
Still early, so he was no longer able to commit to it.
Well, he played a military role, very similar to this, didn't he? I can't remember what movie it was, though.
Oh God.
And now if you cast him in anything, people are like, hey, it's George Costanza. He's just so, it's tough now.
Typecast?
Yeah, typecast, exactly.
So that's all I got for really alternative casting, but I do have some other casting notes here. So Tom Cruise, before he agreed to it, he said, let me go see the play. And after he saw the play, he said, yeah, I want to play Kaffee.
So this was a play before it was a movie?
It was absolutely a screenplay.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
An actual play on Broadway.
Interesting.
They sold the screen rights, I read, even before the play reviewed. So they sold the screen rights. Everybody knew it was going to be, something they wanted, a hot article.
Sure.
The one thing Tom Cruise insisted on was learning all the legalese dialogue in the script.
So my question, and I'm sure Don, is it real? It sounds real to me.
Now,
to the person who has no idea,
So part of the reason we are having Travis on is he is bringing two things to our discussion. He is a naval veteran, and he is my black sheep of a relative, the lawyer in the family. But he is a family law practice.
Yeah.
So
in answer to the legalese, I would give them a C plus, if not a B, in far as what they're attempting to do. But remember, this is not, I mean, nobody wants to hear all the legalese. And the nice thing about this movie is that you have to judge it in its time. This was before the internet really hit. So you didn't have everybody Googling, oh, is this right or is that right? I mean, at the touch of my fingers, I could Google this movie and know that there's no misdemeanors in the UCMJ. They throw that term around, and even from my experience, I know it's not there. But in 1992, it was a very quick to use to say a minor charge and not a felony. So you got the gist of what they're talking about as far as talking about what kind of settlement we're talking about here. And whenever you're talking about a criminal law case, remember, first and foremost, you're talking about settlement law. You're not talking about going to trial and fighting this. A lot of these cases settle. But that's my point on the legalese, though. There's very specific examples that they got absolutely wrong. But then again, kudos to them for making it understandable.
So I have a question for our lawyer that we have here. So Travis, at the beginning, how they talk about Lieutenant Kaffee and how he settles all his cases out of court and doesn't go to trial and stuff. So I always was curious, does that happen more often than not, where they settle it before they actually go to trial? Or is that just more them trying to Hollywood it? Or, I mean, I'm just curious. I have no clue. So,
right. And this goes into the demeanor of an attorney. I want you to understand, first and foremost, law school, you don't go to law school like you go to college to learn about French romantic, poets. Mm. You go to law school, basically, it's a school of dirty thinking. And when I say dirty, don't think that it's some, conjecturing it's bad. It's just different thinking. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's that kind of thinking that you can use to make sure that you're representing and advocating for the best of your client. Because remember, we have an adversarial system. So in kind of understanding where these people are coming from, that's where they live in. I mean, it's a different ballgame if you're playing soccer or football. Mm-hmm. So there's different rules. In criminal law, it's really, to be honest with you, settlement law. Same thing about personal injury law. It's settlement law. And the system is set up in this manner because if every case went to trial, our system would fail. It would just absolutely fail. And that's, to be honest with you, one of those pushes for the prosecutors to agree to a deal because the judge isn't going to like their calendar filled with people challenging misdemeanors. So they better give a good deal, because if they're not giving a good deal, what's the benefit to the defendant to go to trial? Remember, a lot of these cases, they're not paying for the attorney. So settlement law is a part of that. And to be honest with you, if you're a successful defense attorney, you're settling a large majority of your cases. In animal law, we settle a lot of our cases, but it's between two parties. It's not between the state and an individual.
Sure.
So it's by agreement they settle. But the reason they're settling is they don't want to pay $1,000 to go to trial. So it's the same kind of system. So a settlement attorney, is a good attorney.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
All right. For once, we're learning more than just facts about the movie.
Right.
So, all right. Well, I got a ton of notes here, but again, I don't want to go through them all because nobody wants to hear everything I have here. But I do want to point out that Joshua Malina was in the Broadway play. He's a consistent collaborator in almost everything Sorkin does, it seems like. He was in Sports Night. He was in this movie, obviously. He was in The West Wing, and he was in the Newsroom. $500,000 a day.
I got a question for you, Don. Are you ready for it?
Go for it.
What's this movie about? In one word, if you could sum it up.
Cover up.
What about you, Luke? What do you think?
For some reason, I wanted to say discipline.
I think the answer, to be honest with you, has to be honor. It's a movie based on honor. Mm-hmm. That's my take on it. It's at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those movies about, you're fighting a system, and whether it's honorable system or not, and how it kind of falls down and affects those people, but it's a system of military honor.
Yeah.
And coming from my background, in the military, it's this very structured environment here, and I like some of the things that they say. Some of those quotes are classic because they're true.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, for me, it comes down to honor.
I would actually, when you say honor, I agree with you, and it's not just. And once you said that, I was like, okay, honor for everybody in there, from all the lawyers. I mean, they're constantly talking about, like Kaffee, getting him, are you going to be honorable and do your job and stuff? And then, Nicholas is trying to show his honor, like respecting his. I mean, it's just that's the perfect word. That's kind of, I think, with my discipline, I was kind of thinking that same, avenue of honor. I like that.
Yeah.
Honor through discipline. I mean, and especially when you're talking about the Marines. Now, my family has a tradition of serving in the Navy. My brother served in the Navy too as well. My father, grandfather. I think we're 5th generation. My son's hopefully going in soon. We've always been enlisted because that's the ethos that we have as a family. But I think the one thing that you have to understand is that it's built on these traditions.
Mm-hmm.
It's an honorable institution, the Navy especially. But then again, as these events show in this movie, and the actual events that occurred, and taking all the other stuff we have, these histories is built on the blood of those individual sailors who sacrificed and found a system that killed them eventually. It's just like the Iowa blast, and the gun turrets, and who they blamed and why, and those kinds of things.
Sure.
And that tail hooks into the gay issue too as well, because, in my experiences in the Navy, the most effeminate sailor was giving menial duties, berthing ward, who would clean the other men's clothes and take them to the laundry and sweep and clean up the berthing areas. The most effeminate sailor was the one who was given those duties. And I could see this being a situation where, and they didn't play on it too much, but this sailor or this Marine might have been somebody who just failed to live up to the manly standards of the U.S. Marine Corps. And that's a different tier of seriousness. We would have competitions in the Marine Corps in boot camp because we were right next to each other in San Diego. And there's not a year that they wiped us. And it wasn't because they're stronger or whatever else. It was because of their attitude.
Right.
Take no prisoners. And I love the movie for choosing that discipline. I mean, possibly it was easy. It's kind of like writing a book about Babe Ruth, low-hanging fruit. The story tells itself. But, I think that, this is a movie that kind of tells a great story and around those things. Go ahead, Don. I don't mean to hijack you.
No, it's interesting. Well, as we pointed out, he was getting this information from his sister, who was the JAG officer assigned to, I'm assuming, investigate the case or plea out the case, or however it came to be. I didn't really dig too much into the original case. Just wanted to get the starting particulars. And
I think the end result was they were acquitted. I think there was they got him out, let's put it that way. And then I think a few years later, the main protagonist was found dead under suspicious circumstances, what I read. But I think they had enough for a great movie already.
Yeah, in the original story, at least in the bylines I was reading there, Private William, whatever, did not die. But he did have to be treated at 4 different medical facilities. He immediately got airlifted to Miami, then up to Modesto. So I didn't go beyond that.
Now I'm just curious, her sharing that information with her brother and him writing a story about it, would she ever get in trouble for that? I mean, I don't know. I'm just, because I know being a juror, you can't say anything until you're done. I've done that before. You can't talk about it or anything like that. So I'm just curious if she's sharing that stuff at the time when that was going on. If he was writing that all down and would have shared it immediately, would she have gotten in trouble, or
I'm not sure if she shared
too much, just a little bit, I guess maybe, so that
without naming names, would that be I think what he's trying to go for, violating the client counselor privilege. So that's kind of to you, Travis.
Yeah, my 2 cents is it depends, because remember, this is a system of rules and laws enforced by individuals.
Right.
That judge puts on his pants one leg at a time, just like we do. And maybe politically, if he has a vendetta against somebody, he can do whatever damn hell he wants. So if that case came up, it would depend on the prosecutor to recommend the charges, and then he'd go to court and do other things like that. But generally, it's also who you're talking about as far as the circumstances, because it's generally going to be considered something internal. So she has a boss in the military, and she would have to get caught, number one.
Sure.
It'd have to be something that's a violation of policies or their procedures, and she'd probably get a dressing down. And you want to remember, there's a dual society. There's enlisted, and then there's officers,
right?
And also there's professionals and there's non-professionals. So in the military, there's a hierarchy, even among the enlisted sailors, between those who are, electronics technicians who work on the nuclears, the plants, or the radars and other things.
Sure.
They generally get treated with a little bit more respect than the individual down in the bottom of the ship is boatswain's mates.
Right.
Not only in just the type of assignments that they do, but a classification of how they're advanced and other things like that, and how they're used. So that being said, it just really does depend.
Sure.
But it depends also whether she's a prosecutor or where she's a defense attorney.
Right.
And whether there's court orders with gags and everything else. But generally, no. Generally, we talk to people about our cases, and we talk to people who are in the office and other people like that. The secretary, to be honest with you, my policy is not piss off the judicial assistant for the court, and be always just so nice and sweet to opposing counsel's assistants, because sometimes they give you little emails that give their attitude about, oh, this client's a pain in the ass.
Right, like my mom says, you get more bees with honey.
Yeah. So in other words, it just depends. Sure. Are you going to is your boss going to yell at you because you're 15 minutes late? No, not if you're the one who brings them a latte every morning.
Right.
Well, that makes sense. Well, I thought I'd show you guys something that I thought was kind of funny. I haven't fully watched it, but it's a little side story of behind the scenes. So let me show you that.
Cool. Sounds good.
I want to ask about the book. So many great stories in here.
Oh, thanks.
There's a great story. You, of course, in the movie A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise,
yes.
Jack Nicholson. And in the book, you describe you're on set, you're shooting the movie, courtroom scene. Your mom is there, and your mom wants to meet Jack Nicholson, and you're petrified.
Yeah, well, everyone's mom is crazy. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yes, it is.
All right, well, mine's nuts, party of one. So she shows up, we're shooting a courtroom scene, Nicholson's on the stand. They have to put her over Nicholson's other shoulder so that she won't be seen on camera. And she's chatting him up. I'm sitting at the table there across from him in the courtroom with Tom Cruise and Demi Moore. I'm like, where's Waldo in this cast? And I'm supposed to be looking at Jack, and all I see is my mom behind him. So I am freaking out, and Nicholson sees how unnerved I am and thinks it would be hilarious to give me a hard time about it. So he comes over the table there where we're all sitting between setups and says, "Hey, Kev." How's it hanging? Listen, just wondering if you could do me a favor. Yes. I was hoping you might be able to get your mom off my ass. Huh? Think you might be able to handle that?
So, now, you want to see a scene that had to be done multiple times, and I'm not talking about the courtroom scene?
Sure. Was it the? Can I guess?
Oh, please. This should be fun.
Was it the opening scene with the Marines flipping the rifles?
No.
I love that scene, by the way. I think that's so cool how they open with that.
Travis, any guesses on what scene took multiple takes to get right?
Yeah, they get beaten if they drop those rifles. So
Yeah, I know.
They're not going to drop them. I mean,
Why did they
I've
drop
watched
them?
those things before too, and I'm like, drop it.
I honestly think when I show you this clip, you're going to be like, you're kidding. So
I'd say it's a basketball court scene, but then again, they weren't there that long. So,
all right, here we go.
I understand you had a meeting with your men that afternoon.
Yes, I did.
What'd you guys talk about?
I told the men that we had an informer among us and that despite any desire they might...
I know. Look at that look on Travis's face. Like, what? The reason that scene had to be done multiple times, it's Kiefer Sutherland had a hard time driving that Hummer. He kept clipping a couple of the Marines.
oh yeah.
Jesus.
And don't they actually show it in the movie too as well? It actually shows that he clipped a couple of those poor bastards.
I didn't see it there in the scene, but that was almost the entire scene. So
maybe he clipped him so many times that went, just do it, just go with it. That was the least amount of times he hit him that time. He barely grazed.
So yeah, he just really had a hard time with that Hummer.
Yeah, and I recall the military did not have any positive feelings towards this movie, so they couldn't film on actual basis, from what I recall. So I assume
that leads into, yes, the Defense Department refused to endorse this film. This meant the filmmakers could not utilize any military installment during the filming. Most of the Few Good Men shots were actually done on a soundstage in Culver City. So any scene that actually looks like it's the Naval Yard,
Yeah.
stock footage maybe, or they just...
Well, I mean, those were actual Marines doing the rifle flips, wasn't it? I mean,
not necessarily.
No, they were pretty good.
And I mean, I
I
think
suppose they could be a bunch of ex-Marines that have done them before, maybe that they all hired. I don't know.
or just a parade squad. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen those parades with the businessmen in the suitcases. Those
Yeah.
those are right amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
That's
I
the official-
just don't have any...
I'd always assumed that they actually used the real guys to do that scene, and obviously I was probably totally wrong. If the military didn't endorse it, they wouldn't probably let their team go do that. So.
Well, and the thing is it doesn't really matter as long as you believe it, right?
Oh,
And-
yeah.
And I think
No,
they did a very
absolutely.
good job here.
Yeah, they did a
I
great
mean,
job.
you feel like they're in Guantanamo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you feel that they're at these airfields.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to give credit to the guy who's throwing dust up as that car's moving along, kind of thing, probably. Because they didn't have enough dust, so they're throwing bags of dust under the wheels or something.
Dust cannons. Who knows?
Well, it's not like today where you can just add it digitally, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, this came out in '92, so...
And I missed that. I
I
like
think the last Starfighter, which had the first kind of animation in a movie, was like 85 or something. Maybe it was a little earlier.
You got one on the Last Starfighter too, don't you, Don?
That was my second episode, which is available on my YouTube channel, so please check it out.
Oh, you did the last Starfighter. Kudos. All right. Some deep cred there.
Did you know Sorkin actually made a cameo in this movie?
I didn't.
Well, I don't know what he would do.
Was he like in the courtroom or something?
I think the pictures I've seen of him is because he's next to some beautiful girl.
Was he in one of the bars or something? That bar that they meet in? That Kaffee and Kevin Bacon's character meet in? Was he there?
Good guess. No.
Okay.
Remember the bar where Kaffee is drinking the night before he's ready to just give up on the case? If Dawson's ready to throw his life away, he's not going to hold his hand on the way down.
Yeah.
And he goes to that bar and he hears almost the exact same conversation he had.
Oh yeah.
With what Craven. I forget what his character's name was.
Yeah.
But at the very beginning, about the dime bag of, oregano.
Yeah.
So.
Kinds of discovery motions, and you're going to spend the better part of a year going blind on paperwork because a 90-year-old man misread the Delaware insurance code.
So what happened?
Calls back 15 minutes later. He says, let's make a deal. You get 2 more this week.
So that kind of goes back to what Travis said earlier about settlement law.
Right.
And I had a conversation like that just today, in fact. I mean, I was talking to another attorney in my office who does employment law. And he was talking about that. Hey, listen, you guys are going to have an FMLA case, a Family Medical Leave Act case, where we can
the
ask
Family
for double,
Medical Leave Act of 1999.
Yeah, double damages, and you're going to challenge that, and you're raising your offer by $300 when I lowered mine by $5,000. You come back with something credible because I'm filing tomorrow, because it's all about pressure, and it's all about just dollars and cents, and ultimately they're going to reach a resolution that's somewhere in the middle. But one of the things that I was thinking about, that raised for me is the Rocky scenes, where Rocky's training hard for the big thing, and they do that courtroom thing. I think out of everything that I saw, as far as the legal kind of feel for what that actually entails and what they were actually doing, that's what I do when I prepare my clients for their presentations at trial. Because they'll say something like, well, I did A, B, and C. And I'm like, okay, well, now you're admitting to C. Why is C even an issue? We're talking about A. Why, hell, in fact, why are we talking about B? Because now you've just incriminated yourself in something else. It's that scene really hit hard with me, as far as that's exactly how I prep my clients. And I remember that one scene with me where she's like, dang, you're right, and he's got it, because that's what an attorney does, is dirty thinking, because that presentation matters. My first trial question I ever asked days before trial, and I'll ask you guys this too as well right now. Luke, have you ever stolen anything?
No.
That's a lie. Absolute lie. 99.9% of people will ever say that. Why? Because you're afraid of admitting a negative. And my pose to this is, if the other counsel asks you that question and you say yes, my job as an attorney is to rehabilitate you and say, well, sir, you said yes, or you said, yes, I have, really quickly there. Did you rob any banks recently? No. I was 8 years old. I stole some candy. My mom made me return it. I learned a life lesson. You said no because you're afraid of admitting a negative. And now your credibility before the judge is shot, because everybody's stolen something.
So I said no because
That's
I've never
truth.
stolen anything. Like, honestly, I was raised as an Eagle Scout. I've taken back things when I went, like, if I paid too much, I go, ma'am, I paid too much.
Nobody's going to believe that.
I know what you're
you've
saying.
Never had sex before. You've never stolen anything before. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're not going to be credible before the court.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That kind of a thing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that being said, that trial prep is so important. And sometimes you have to play the devil's advocate,
right,
as I've just done, because they're going to catch you in that. And it might be meaningless, other than maybe toward your credibility or some other issue you didn't even think of. And I always tell my clients, first and foremost, guess who the stupidest person in that room is? It's you on that stand. Everybody else is paid to do what they're doing, and they're very good at it.
Right.
Yes, no, I don't recall.
I don't recall.
So
well, you're trying to create that sense of doubt, right?
So I want to cut, because this just made me think of that scene between Kevin Bacon and Noah Wiley, and he hands him the rifle company manual.
Oh yeah,
and
that was great. This is a great scene too.
Yeah, and if I would have thought about it ahead of time, I would have had it ready to rewatch it right now.
He grabs the book and goes, tell me where the mess hall is. Well, you know where the mess hall is.
Are you telling me?
You mean you didn't eat the whole time you were there? Well, it's not in this book.
So what's your opinion, Travis? Is that great?
That's exactly their job.
Right. Is that dirty thinking that you're
thinking outside the box?
Yeah.
Redirect.
All right, here's the dirty secret. All right, never disclose this. All right, this is the dirtiest secret. Everybody does this stuff. Sometimes when I'm in trial and I want to make a point And remember, these are not sophisticated defendants. I'm not questioning the CEO of Ford Motor Corporation. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm questioning some father on the stand or some other, person on the stand. So, sometimes they're sophisticated, sometimes they're not. So you have to play Peoria. So sometimes when I'm trying to prove a point that I might not have enough support for, there's going to be a stack of papers. I'll put my hand on it, and it's going to be this thing. What is that they call in movies? The McDougal.
MacGuffin, yeah.
A MacGuffin, right? And I'm going to have my hand on it. And I'm going to be talking about this topic and everything else, and I'm going to introduce evidence. I'm going to talk about that, and then when it gets to the question that I really want to have an answer to, by that time, I've played it up so much that they think I have so much evidence here to talk about that they just said, yeah, that's true. That's all I wanted in the first place.
Right.
And speaking of the McGruff, I just want to replug. In November, we did the movie Ronin. And that is hands down nothing but a McGruff movie. So please go back and check that out if you haven't seen it already, because we really dig into the McGruff, because
and Thomas did it again too. His character did it with the two witnesses there, because I will put witnesses on a witness list. I have no intention of ever calling.
Yeah, the two airmen in
let them know.
In the audience.
Speaking of that, because that was in the play, and ultimately in the play, it kind of ends with him proving that we have doctored logbooks.
Right.
But in the movie, obviously, he was able to get this confession.
I just love that. What were they going to testify about? Absolutely nothing.
Powerful witnesses.
Yeah.
And I love the response of the prosecutor. He wasn't upset about it.
No.
Well played.
Yep.
Good job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like he said with the cross-examination on Barnes. That was a great cross today in court. And then he's bringing on Jessup. So.
And when we get to the suicide, you know what I mean? That's the play in honor too as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because his suicide note isn't for Kaffee or anybody else. He's actually writing to Santiago's parents.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it goes back to that whole honor thing you were talking about.
Exactly, and that's the thing is that in for me in the Navy, I mean, it's at this time, this is 92, and this is the Clinton years, and this is the drawdown in the military, and everything else is occurring for us too as well. And we as sailors and soldiers felt under attack really because our jobs, our livelihoods, our careers were at risk. Tailhook and all these other scandals in the Navy. And then in 1996, we had Admiral Borda, who committed suicide because he was wearing a cluster on his uniforms, on his medals, that was not awarded. Now, somebody told him, a higher chain of command admiral told him that it was authorized. It wasn't, though, technically. And he felt that it would bring discredit upon the Navy, and then committed suicide. And now's the time where you can put up the 1-800 number for the suicide prevention hotline. But the point is that's just absolutely ridiculous. But it was based on
honor.
And this man was a hero to all of us enlisted people, because he was the first one to go from seaman, enlisted class, all the way up to the chief of naval operations. Right. And he committed suicide because of honor, some false sense that this honor required that. Yeah. I remember crying because that guy was just our hero. Right. He created many programs for the enlisted people, but that honor that requires that, I think they played it right in this movie. I think it was for an effect, it was for something, but they got it absolutely right. And that happens all the time in the military. There's a lot of suicides, because of that. And that's, you can look at recent histories of that happening.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time I put up the suicide helpline.
No, it would not.
And what is your wife's charity that she supports a lot?
My wife is a social worker, and she works with Mission 22 to help prevent suicides for veterans and active military.
So I wouldn't be surprised that when I do the edit here, I'll have that back up again. So
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's very appropriate. This movie, really highlights that, but they use it, right? But they got it right. I could see that happening. It's not some kind of a movie where you have somebody acting against their own, their motives or their character. Absolutely in line for that kind of a character in that position.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, it's, I love hearing from you as a former veteran, the honor and stuff. And it's one of those movies, though, for me, anytime it's on, even if it's just on TV, it'll suck me in, and I'll just sit there and watch the whole thing, no matter what part it's at. It just grabs me, and it sucks me because I enjoy it so much. But I think that the whole honor and stuff and bringing everything together that makes you want to watch it and stuff, and just how well it's done. So.
Yeah, I think the only hyperbole that they actually really use that I can really blame them for is the yelling in the courtroom. That was never going to happen. No judge in my experience is ever going to lose control of the courtroom like that. They're going to put a kibosh on that real damn quick.
Little Hollywood in there.
Conferences. Yeah, there are going to be some words.
I'm sure. I've seen on Facebook multiple times. I'm sure, Luke, you've seen these where they show the actual script and the way it's actually done on film side by side, so you can see what was written, what was done. And sometimes it's dead on accurate to the script. Sometimes there's a little ad lib or a longer pause or a couple extra bonus words.
Mm-hmm.
When they showed the courtroom scene, it was word for word. That's how it was written. And we kind of already mentioned that Nicholson was there only for 10 days, and he did that scene 40 to 50 different times with that same level of intensity every single time. So obviously by the time he was done filming that day, he was a little spent.
Yeah, I can imagine trying to keep up with that intensity.
Because
and I heard the same thing, that they really did give him credit for every scene. He just did.
Just owned it.
Yeah. The entire crew felt like they were in the presence of Hollywood royalty at this point.
Yeah.
Because, again, this is coming out in 92. Just basically 4 years earlier, we had that amazing performance out of him as the Joker in Tim Burton's Batman. Sorry, I had to throw it in just because I
joke yourself.
I can't remember where I first saw that, right? I mean, wasn't that was actually early 89 or something like that? When was that?
Yeah, officially came out in 89, filmed in 88. So that's why I'm going with the 4-year stretch.
I think I saw it at the Village 6.
I saw the sequel the first time on a military base. That's the first movie I ever watched on a military base, was the sequel.
So, Luke, did you catch somebody in this movie that was also in last movie we spoke about at the beginning of this month? The Princess Bride?
I'm thinking here. No, I'm drawing a blank.
You don't have any guessed?
Well, I'm not. I mean, I know who it's not. I don't think. Robin Wright. Oh yes, shoot, yes, that's right.
All pun intended there, Luke.
Yeah. Except he doesn't have 6 fingers.
Christopher Guest is in both of these films.
That's right.
And again, I didn't originally plan it to be, but we are doing 2 Rob Reiner films.
Yeah, I was saying they're both directed by Rob Reiner too, so.
Which is just kind of amazing if you think about Rob's career. You know, he does This Is Spinal Tap. Then he does The Princess Bride. In between Princess Bride and this, I think we have When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, this is When Harry Met Sally, yeah.
And I'm sure there's others, but I do want to point out something that Rob actually said. Who do you think in this film, which character Rob Reiner most identifies with?
Kevin Bacon's.
Okay, Travis?
You know, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how he sees himself as every man, maybe. To be honest with you, I think it'd have to be the lieutenant colonel. What was his name again? I can't remember.
Jessup? Or no?
Yes,
I know who you're speaking of, but no. It's Lieutenant Kaffee.
Kaffee, really?
The hero.
And it makes sense. Let me explain. He eerily identifies with Kaffee, played by Tom Cruise, whose glib, wise guy style masks intense fear about living in the shadow of his father, now dead, who was a renowned naval attorney general. In all my films, said Reiner, who had struggled for years to move out of the shadow of his own father,
right?
Writer-director Carl Reiner, I got to find something I could hook up with, connect with. Kaffee is the same business as his father. I'm in the same business as mine. Everywhere I went when I started out, it was Carl Reiner this, Carl Reiner that. He's the nicest man in the world, incredibly sweet-natured, but it was frighteningly always getting compared to his father.
Yeah, and then they do that a lot in the movie where they say, Kaffee, you're, you know, in the shadow of your dad and stuff, or a shadow of this dead great trial lawyer. And
that, yeah. We're first kind of introduced about Kaffee's lineage down in Cuba from that same light colonel. And then Kevin Bacon really made a good point about it.
Yeah.
About saying you got bullied into that courtroom.
Yep.
By the ghost of a dead lawyer.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought of when you were bringing that up.
So now I'm just curious. Go ahead, Travis. No, go ahead.
What are you curious about? I'll die if I don't feel what you're curious about.
What do you think of the character of Galloway? Do you think
which one?
Demi Moore's character?
The Demi, the female character? Because what's the Calloway and Galloway? I thought it was Calloway.
Galloway.
Is it Galloway?
Yeah.
Calloway?
Galloway with the G, I think, yeah.
Is it a Galloway? Oh, okay. What do I think about her character? You know, I'm glad they didn't have a sex scene, to be honest with you. It kind of would have ruined the movie, in my opinion, kind of thing. I don't know. You know,
the reason I bring it up is an unnamed executive gave Sorkin notes. If Tom Cruise and Demi Moore aren't going to sleep with each other, why is Demi Moore a woman? His response, and again, this is 1992 when he's doing this.
Yeah.
I said the obvious answer. Women have more purpose other than to sleep with Tom Cruise. He claimed the incident was the worst experience as a screenwriter.
Good for him.
Demi Moore said she really wanted the part.
So she plays the motivation, doesn't she?
Well,
and come in from a feminine character, kind of like, you know, your mother character, the one, the disciplinarian kind of thing who tells you the right from wrong. She's the conscience, right? And you always need that, right?
Well, they almost wrote her in to be the love interest at the end. But fortunately, these scenes weren't done. Demi Moore said she really wanted the part in the first place because Galloway was a genderless role. Robert Ebert, in his 2.5-star review, wrote that a friend of his, Galloway was originally written as a man. In Sorkin's third draft of the screenplay, dated months before shooting, the movie ends with Kaffee asking Galloway out on a date. She responds by telling him to wear matching socks like she did before the first day of the trial. That exchange, thank God, did not make it into the movie.
I mean, they still bring a little tension, I think, just to make, you know, a little bit of that, almost like they're kind of starting to like each other and more than just work. But I'm glad they didn't play on it more. It fit perfect how they did it.
Yeah, I'm
I agree.
glad they didn't go the full
Yeah.
matchmaking thing at the end. You know,
So I have another question.
You're
It's
waiting
totally
for it,
off the
aren't you,
subject.
though?
what's that?
You're kind of waiting for it.
Yeah, you are waiting for it. You think that they're going to do something, and then they, you know, don't.
I think it's great that they left it open-ended.
Yeah.
Maybe they
Well,
continue working together because they make a great team. Maybe they get a relationship. Who knows?
the thing about the military that I always found to be true was the first advice I got when I first got to my first ship was, listen, kid, you're going to find difficulties here wherever you look. 6 months. You can survive something for 6 months. Either you're going to change duty stations, the other guy is going to get shipped out, or your command is going to change, or the ship will go to sea. So whatever problem you got, it's fine. It'll go away in 6 months and you'll get a new one. Don't worry.
Good advice.
So as far as them being a great team and everything else, they're in the military. They're going to be moved or transferred, or there's duty assignments, or there's something else going on. Always upwards and onwards. So change is part of the job. That's my 2 comments.
That was great. And I want to thank you both for joining me once again, because this has been a great conversation. So,
well, it's a great movie. You made a really great choice here. So,
Yeah, I love it too.
easy.
This, you kind of hit it on the head with the idea of honor with this one. And it ties very well into the movie that Luke and I are already planning to do next month, February 1st, which is Men of Honor. So I hope everybody comes back and checks that out when we do that.
Which one's that? Maid of Honor?
Men of Honor.
Men of Honor.
With Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro, the first
The divers, right?
American diver. Yep.
Yep. And you guys did notice Cuba's in this movie as well.
Yep, he is.
So this is the first time him and Tom were together.
But not
And
the
it's
last.
just an interesting diving board, excuse the pun, into next month's movie. So, Luke, once again, thank you as always. Travis, thank you for your insight. Hope everybody
Thank you for
enjoyed
having me.
this.
Glad to be here.